we're dealing with the fires, and it's absolutely devastating. I mean, we have friends and family who've lost their homes, who've lost their businesses. It's awful. And people are calling us and saying, like, where do I go? What do I do? How do I navigate all this? And so that's one of the reasons I'm very excited to have you on. So I'd love to say, hey, Cameron, I have a friend. They lost their home. Where do you suggest they begin?
Most of my phone calls this week have been that. And for context, if anyone's watching this later, we're talking about these Palisades fires, the Eaton fire in Altadena. It is more relevant for those of us that are local here than any event has ever been before. We had record rainfall the last 2 years, right? And record amount of claims filed for that type of damage. Not even close. Like, that doesn't even scratch the surface of what we're all experiencing and hearing from people right now. I know people that have lost their homes. It seems like everyone I know knows someone that lost a home or business. And some people have, like, if you're part of your community or friends live in an area like Altadena, it's like, oh, I know a dozen people that lost their homes. And that's absurd.
We are so excited to be joined today by Cameron Mooney. He is the CEO and founder of Tugboat. He's also a public adjuster that specializes in helping homeowners navigate the intricacies of their home insurance policies. And in light of the recent Southern California fires, I know that he's been extremely busy, and we are so thankful that he's carved out some time for us today. Our thoughts and our prayers are with all of the families who have been affected by these fires. It's truly heartbreaking. And our heart at Vetted Homes is to be able to help people in their greatest time of need. And I know that's exactly how Cameron feels. So we're excited to welcome him today.
Thanks so much. Really happy to be here.
Awesome. So maybe for the people that are listening, can you just break down what a public adjuster is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll talk about it for a moment. I'll say too, Tugboat in our business, what's cool is we actually have like a public adjusting piece of it, and then a piece that is explicitly not public adjusting, which is the online portion of it. I know some people have various feelings about public adjusters, like you might have about attorneys or anything like that. And that's fine. It's an industry that has a lot of reputation, good and bad. And so we're really happy to be a part of it and try to raise the bar. But so tugboat.claims, our online portion, is a self-advocacy tool. So it's not, you're not having a public adjuster represent you. No one's working on your behalf with your insurance company. And then I want to talk about your question is, what's a public adjuster? So Tugboat also owns a public adjusting firm called Waypoint Adjusting that is like our premium service, and that is a public adjusting service. And so with that, we operate as public adjusters. I'm a licensed public adjuster. I still represent some clients personally. I oversee a team of public adjusters. Most of them are here in Southern California. That's where the bulk of our team is. And a public adjuster is someone who is licensed by the state. Typically, in most states that allow public adjusters, you need a specific license to do it. There are some various alterations of that, or variations on that. Some states you can have generally just an adjuster license and act as a public adjuster. But in California, we have a pretty good model here for what is the standard. And so if you want to work as an adjuster here, and an adjuster, if people and the viewers aren't familiar, which I certainly wasn't before I actually became one, an adjuster is the person that represents your insurance company, typically the insurance adjuster, and adjusts your claim, which means they figure out, is it covered? How much should it cost? What is going to be the scope and the price of the repairs? That's what the adjuster does. I used to do that for the insurance companies. And then you can also be licensed in California as what's called a public adjuster, which is a little bit of a misnomer. It's phrased that way because we work for the public rather than for an insurance company. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people think of it as a private adjuster, because when you hire a public adjuster, someone licensed to do that, you're hiring them privately to represent you, your interests to your insurance company. And so just like the insurance company has their own adjuster that's going to represent them and their interests within that claim and adjust the claim, hiring a public adjuster is hiring someone on your behalf that will represent you a little bit like an attorney would, and then negotiate, get estimates prepared, review your policy, figure out what should be included there, and ensure that you're getting the full benefit of your policy throughout the claims process. So that's what a public adjuster does. That's what we do with Waypoint Adjusting, our service. And then that reality, that knowledge and education that came with that is really what informed Tugboat, our online service, to help people, just the general public, a lay person, be able to take that knowledge that a public adjuster has and implement some of it themselves. How do you negotiate a claim a little bit better? How do you understand your policy, your rights, the benefits that are due to you, a little bit more like an expert? And what we like to say is a little bit of knowledge when it comes to your insurance policy and claims goes a long way, right? There's not typically small mistakes when it comes to a claim, because almost everything is big, right? So if you had enough damage that you want to file a claim to your insurance company, or should, you have thousands of dollars worth of damage, right? And typically tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage. So if they miss a coat of paint, if they have the wrong quality cabinets, if they haven't approved the right type of roofing shingle, any of those that I just said, it's not a few $100s, it's a few $1,000s that are typically missing within an estimate. So what we have liked to do with Tugboat is take some of that knowledge, like I said, allow homeowners to apply it within their claim and get back some of what's being left on the table throughout the claims process. And then beyond that, be able to just navigate the process more. You guys will know, because we've talked about this a little bit before, but you're involved in what is, I think, the most emotionally challenging part of a claim, right? That's the additional living expenses. That's where am I going to stay? How am I going to pay for this? Where are we going to eat? Is this amount of time that I need to be out of my house approved by the insurance company? This is the most emotional part, especially early on for a person, because they're displaced. It's expensive, right? So people are worried, like, am I going to have to come out of pocket for this? Is this extra month that I'm going to get approved, that I need to get approved, going to get approved, right? And the point I made about there's no small mistakes, there's no small approval with ALE, right? If someone doesn't have a single week approved that they need to stay in a short-term rentals are expensive, right? So you suddenly can be coming out of pocket $2,500 for this extra week that your adjuster didn't approve. And that might just be because you didn't know how to communicate to them why it needed to get approved. And so a lot of what we do at Tugboat isn't strictly negotiating for more funds or scope, but it's just navigating whatever issue or questions come up throughout the process. So, and most common one just being like, hey, my adjuster didn't respond. Like, what do I do next? Mm-hmm. So things like that.
Yeah, I love that. And this is super helpful because we work with the families who stay in our homes, and much of the time they don't know all of those details. And so I would love, and I will say too, I mean, we're dealing with the fires and it's absolutely devastating. I mean, we have friends and family who've lost their homes, who've lost their businesses. It's awful. And people are calling us and saying, like, where do I go? What do I do? How do I navigate all this? And so that's one of the reasons I'm very excited to have you on. So I'd love to even backtrack a little bit and say, hey, Cameron, I have a friend, they lost their home. Where do you suggest they begin? Could you walk us through that process?
Yeah, most of my phone calls this week have been that. And for context, if anyone's watching this later, we're talking about these Palisades fires, the Eaton fire in Altadena. Mm-hmm. It is more relevant for those of us that are local here than any event has ever been before, right? There was huge, we had a record rainfall the last 2 years, right? And record for, in my part of the business, like record amount of claims filed for that type of damage, not even close. Like that doesn't even scratch the surface of what we're all experiencing and hearing from people right now. Mm-hmm. So just like you, I know people that have lost their homes. It seems like everyone I know knows someone that lost a home or a business. Yeah. And some people have, like, if part of your community or friends live in an area like Altadena, it's like, oh, I know a dozen people that lost their homes. And that's absurd, right? That doesn't happen in hurricanes. Usually it doesn't happen in windstorms. It might happen in like a tornado if it goes through an area really bad. But like what has happened here is a level of devastation that I've never seen before in my nearly a decade working in the claims industry. So, first of all, we're really early right after the fire. Like the fires are still going right now, some of them, right? They're not even under 100% containment yet. And the really tragic part of all of this is, unfortunately, even though the fire's still going, most people haven't even gotten back to their house to see what is left in the rubble. They're probably staying with friends and family, trying to sort out what is their rental going to be. for the rest of this time. We're that early, right beyond it. But what's unfortunate is people already are having to start the claims process in earnest. It doesn't get to wait, right? You don't get to be like, hey, I'm just going to take a few months for me and my family to take a deep breath and just figure out what we're going to do next. And there are certainly like maybe a few days, maybe even a week or two that families can kind of take and do that. And it is going to be important for them to have a deep focus on their emotional health throughout this process. But I say all that to say I'm going to give some pointers that have to do with claims right now. And it is legitimately unfortunate that I even have to talk through people with that right now, right? It's like, I wish when someone called me, I could just be like, hey, don't even worry about it for a little bit. Like, don't stress. There's nothing that can go wrong in these first few days and weeks. Just relax and call me again in a month. But unfortunately, there were people that were getting calls from their adjusters the day after the fire started, when it had just burned their, so they fire started, they knew it burned their house down, they filed the claim like they're supposed to. And, while the fire is still burning in the hills, they're getting calls from their adjuster talking about scheduling the inspection. And in those first phone calls that you have, significant things can be discussed, right? Significant, you might not think that you're agreeing to something. You might not think that you're saying anything significant, and you might not, right? It may be really innocuous. You may have an adjuster that is really knowledgeable and knows how to kind of care through this situation right from the get-go. But there are plenty of times where I have seen, and you can find other people talking about this online too, that went through the Wildfires. I watched a video last night of, I think it was the actor's named Joe Flanagan, where he, during the Wildfire, was talking about how, hey, in these first conversations that you have on your phone, be careful about what you're committing. Like, you don't think you're committing to something, but they're going to use this recorded phone call that you may have forgotten was recorded. And you said, you know what, I think I didn't have that much in my living room, and I don't know, a rug and a couch. And then as you think back to it later, you're remembering the 10 blankets and all the shoes and all the artwork and all the TV. And oh my gosh, yeah, I remember we had our Amazon boxes were on the floor in there. And you're thinking about later, or your adjusters bring up later, well, like during your first phone call, you said there was like hardly anything in the living room. Mm-hmm. And it may sound absurd that someone would need to be that concerned about that at this stage. And I will get pushback on this. If I post something like this on LinkedIn, where there's an array of professionals across the industry that both work for insurance companies and as advocates, I'll get pushback and say like, no, this doesn't happen. Adjusters, like, they only care about the people that are there. And I can tell you, I've worked on both sides of the industry. I've worked on this side for a long time now. I've seen thousands of claims. It happens, right? And even if it doesn't, this is what I tell people too. I'm taking a while to get into some tips here, but even if the things that I'll talk about here in a second that are common issues only happen to a small percentage of people, right? Say it only happens to 5% of people in this fire. Well, it sounds like there's upwards of 10,000 claims, wow. Right? So 5% of that, what do you multiply it? What is that? 550 or 50, how many zeros are there? doesn't matter. But the point is, like, it's really significant actually for a lot of people, right? And if you expand it out to people that have smoke claims and things like that, it's like there may be as many as 100,000 claims that come out of this event. Mm-hmm. So even if the issues that I'm talking about only affected 5%, and they don't, I would suggest that it's probably somewhere between 30 and 50% that issues like this will come up. But even if it was smaller, let's not pretend that this still isn't significant, right? These things. And if it's significant for any small portion of people, then if you are someone that has a claim, then you should be prepared, be on guard, be careful, and be really precise with how you handle your claim and be strategic. So I'll go through a few different points that I've sent out to people. And the first one is this. If and I don't typically do this after a storm, like when we've helped at hurricanes, I'll say if anyone that's watching this that's connected to the Vetted Homes team, you are welcome to reach out to us directly. I'll give you guys my cell phone number to post in this, which is what we're not typically doing. But I want to make sure that anybody that's affected that has questions literally has a line to someone to talk to that they feel comfortable with. right? And so most of what I've done for the last week to 10 days, I've probably been on the phone with 60 different homeowners that have lost their home. Those aren't all people that are going to become clients of ours. Those aren't all people. It's just people that are scared, right? And people that need someone to listen to them that has some confidence in their answers. And so first thing is, if you're watching this and it's within the, first 6 weeks after this fire, and you just want to talk with someone, you're concerned about it, reach out to me directly. Send me a text message, give me a phone call, send us an email. Either likely myself, or one of the other very knowledgeable licensed adjusters from our team will be able to talk with you and give you confident answers and guidance through the process. So that's number one.
You're incredible, first of all. I'm going to interrupt and just say that is so incredibly gracious of you to do that. And you're incredible. So thank you for offering.
I appreciate it. It's so close to home. This is what you guys were talking about earlier. Like, it just feels so personal that this is, thankfully, I have something to offer. Everyone has something to offer, right? You can go, and people are doing it. They're giving out food. They're like, the community is coming around, which is amazing, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that we see so much help coming around, and thankfully, like, we're blessed that we've worked on this project for long enough. That's like, hey, and not that we help people after hurricanes, like I said, after storms, but it's like, I finally get to utilize this thing that I've worked on with my neighbors, the people I know and the people that know them. That feels amazing, right? Like, you guys, I would bet like half of your friends don't understand what you guys do. They're like, wait, like, you rent out houses to who? People with insurance claims? That doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? And so suddenly the thing that you do, the thing that we do, became incredibly relevant to the people around us. And thankfully, like, we're blessed to have something to offer them. That feels that feels special and fulfilling in a way that blesses us simultaneously, right? And so we're really grateful to be able to offer that. And if for some reason it ever becomes too overwhelming, like, we'll deal with it then, right? We have more people, we can grow our team, we'll figure out ways. We want to make sure everyone has support. So I'm looking to the side because I have a few notes that we've sent out to people. And so I'm going to give a few tips that are just a little bit more specific. First one's going to be keep really thorough records of all your expenses. You guys probably are already telling people this already, but we tell people to do a few specific things right away to help them in keeping records. One, get a separate journal that is just like, this is my journal that if I'm a notes person, whether maybe that's a note on someone's phone, but a lot of people, it's just better. Like, I'm a notes person. Let's write this down. Everything that has to do with my claim, I'm writing it down. If I make a purchase, if I talk to an adjuster, whatever it might be, I'm taking a note of it. And where that's important on the expenses portion is people will rack up so many expenses in these coming days that can be qualified as additional living expenses, loss of use expenses, that they just will forget. They'll run to Target and buy a bunch of clothes and later think that, oh, those only qualify as my contents coverage. It's like, actually, like, if you don't usually shop at Target, like, I know we shop at Target a good amount, but it's not where I buy all my clothes, right? Like, this flannel I chose from an online store that I really liked, right? I'm not going to go order that the day after a fire, but I need something warm to wear. So I might go to Target and buy my family clothes that I wouldn't typically be buying. Those are additional living expenses. That's not contents replacement. All the extra eating out that you have to do, the shipping costs for ordering things, whatever it might be, and any extra expenses that come up, keep a really thorough record. And I say this as someone who's horrible at doing this typically, right? Like, I am not, if anyone asks me if I want a receipt, the answer is like, oh, please no. Like, yes, please no. If I take a receipt, it's going to go like in my pocket or my glove compartment. I'm going to wonder, like, a year from then, I'm going to be like, why did I keep this receipt? 100%. And then I'm going to wonder, like, was this important enough? Like, this is for a chicken salad. Why did I need this receipt? So it's never going to get categorized the right way. But if I was talking to myself, I'd be like, hey, it's time to buckle up. You're going to take a picture of every receipt. There's a really good app. You guys can link to it. There's a handful of them, but we recommend one called Faux Receipt. I don't know why it's called that. We're not linked to them in any way. Eventually, hopefully, our online resource has a way of doing this, but right now we don't. And so that is just an app that you can take a picture of a receipt and categorize it really quickly. Yeah. into different categories. So that's one, keep a really good record of your expenses. You will thank yourself later for doing it. Number two is make early requests. And this is where we can help you out. We'll talk later a little bit about what Tugboat does and how we're offering it for free and how people can utilize that to make requests like this. But whether we're helping you do it or you're doing it on your own, request as much advance funds as you possibly can, right? Your adjuster will likely on the first phone calls be like, hey, we can send you a contents advance. And I heard yesterday of one sending $5,000. I'm like, that's nothing compared to what they need. And that's nothing. And you can request California guidelines after these wildfires are that you can request 30% of your coverage as an advance, essentially. Like they need to pay that out to you without you providing a list, without you having to write down any notes. You have this coverage and they need to pay you 30% of it. And it is better for you to have those funds as soon as possible. One, there's a sense of safety and comfort that'll come with like, hey, I have like this little bit of security financially, right? I'm not going to tap into our savings and worry about what's going to happen there. So the sooner that you can get these large advances, the better for you. And emotionally, I can tell you, you'll feel better having them there. One of the tips that we'll give some people, this is just an extra note. It may seem a little overboard, but I think it's actually really helpful. You are going to be dealing with so much money that a lot of people aren't just typically used to all of a sudden getting a $500,000 check for replacement of their property. We actually recommend people open up a separate bank account just for this claim. I'll say just go to your bank, open up a checking account, and you're only going to use funds for this claim in that checking account. So you can have this really clear. You're not going to go back through your regular checking account a year from now trying to remember, was this for my claim? Was this for something else? You can get a debit card associated with that account so that every time that you go make a purchase of personal property, it's on that account. And so when you need to give a record to your adjuster of all the things that you purchased, both additional living expenses and contents, you're like, hey, here's my bank statement. This is everything we bought. So that will be helpful for the people that are willing to do that. Request a large advance, open a separate account, manage the funds within there. And I would say, feel really if your adjuster's like, oh, we'll go ahead and send $10,000 now, like be a big negotiator in that moment. It's your money that they're holding on to, right? It's your policy limits. And so I'd be like, you know what, how much is 10,000 all that I'm owed right now? You're like, oh, you know what, we're just not sure right now. You know what, if we're not sure right now, like I can tell you right now, it would be so helpful for us to get something more like $100,000 and ask really big, right? There's no reason that you shouldn't make those requests right now. And this is going to be relevant too on the additional living expenses. And it's not an advance of money that they're asking for. They'll give some money as an advance for that, but they can ask right away, hey, can I get approval that I can sign a lease for 12 months? Right. And some of them might be like, well, let's start with 6 months. And you'd be like, you know what? It's going to be easier for me to find a home. I will be more competitive as a renter if I have this approval for 12 months. That way I'm coming to you guys as owners and being like, hey, you have a renter for the next 12 months, right? Maybe even more. If these adjusters know that these rebuilds are likely going to take more like 2 years rather than 1 year. And so ask for 18 months. Imagine the bit of a discount that you would give someone that was going to offer you 18 months versus 12 months, right? Like all of these things are really relevant. And so, getting pre-approval on that amount of time will be really helpful in people being successful in this claim. What they don't want to do is go rent the most expensive place for the next 2 months, burn up a lot of their ALE. All the longer term, midterm rentals are now taken. They're trying to find what they can. The rates aren't as good as they were. Like again, what I said before, it's unfortunate that you have to make such big decisions so quickly. But the faster you can start sorting out some of these things, you're getting yourself closer to the front of the line, and there is going to be a big benefit to it in the long run.
Before you move on to the next point, could you possibly just explain the different kinds of buckets of money that are available when you file?
I can go quickly through that. So there are 4 main coverages for the vast majority of people that are going to be in there. And they all have like they'll have for your insurance company coverage A, B, C, and D associated to them. That's not as important for this because some companies switch around coverage B and C for some reason, so they're not the same across. So I'll just say the first one that you have is called your dwelling coverage. That's your house, right? It's not your sheds. It's not your fences. It's not anything detached from your house. It is your house. And that's the walls, the floors, the cabinets. The way that adjusters will typically explain it, it's if you were to take your house and turn it upside down, it's anything that didn't fall down inside as well, right? Anything that stayed attached. So that's how you can think of it. And that's the dwelling coverage. The next one in most policies is going to be other structures, which is highly affected in most people's as well. That is your sheds, your fences, your landscaping will fall under that. That's a little bucket of coverage that falls into that, but you can think of that as other structures. Your driveways and slabs, those are also affected. Too much heat hit those will have to get replaced. So you have dwelling, you have your other structures is the next one, and then your personal property or contents is the third one. And this is a very important one. This is everything that did fall down when you turned over your house and everything fell down, right? Mm-hmm. So, and this is such an important one because this is the bucket that people will get underpaid on the most after a wildfire event because people did not have good records. Nobody does of all the things that are in their house. And that's not just, I know that I had my clothes in my closet, but I'm sitting at a desk right now. If I was to open it, I'm sitting at my in-laws' house right now because the power's out where we are. There are hundreds of things in what would be like a junk drawer right here, right? Pens, pencils, notepads, stamps, an old charging cable, an old charging port. Like this that's sitting in here, $15, maybe you order it online. That's not nothing. Like those just add up over and over and over within the personal property part of a claim. And what will happen after these fires is people will try to remember what was in this room and they'll remember this desk, right? And you might try to remember what was in here and be like, I don't know, I probably had 5 pencils and whatever. There are probably 80 pens and pencils in this drawer right here. You know what I mean? So all that to say, this is the coverage where if people aren't meticulous and thorough in how they're trying to remember and being generous with that list with themselves, then they're going to leave money on the table because they're going to be forced to make a list by almost every carrier of what's there. And if you want to get all that coverage, and you should, you're going to have to make a list. So dwelling, other structures, that's personal property and contents. And the last one is ALE, or loss of use. That's what you guys are most involved with. Additional living expenses or loss of use funds. And the way to understand that best, because some people, which they probably ask you this, like, does it cover my mortgage? Do I get to like make my mortgage payments with it? Does it, I'm renting your house, but does it cover us eating out and things like that? And so the simplest way to think about it, and your insurance company may make you prove this with financial statements, bank statements, is what are your typical monthly expenses for living? That is how much you spend to eat, to travel back and forth from work, and to live in your house. And anything above that you are now incurring, that's what we're going to pay for. So to start, you pay your mortgage every month, but you don't pay your mortgage and pay somewhere to rent. And so that's the first big additional that you guys are most involved with, right? So now call it, let's say you have $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month in rent. That is your first bucket of additional living expenses. But if you're also having to drive further to work, right? Which might not seem like a lot, but when you're driving an extra 15, 20 miles 5 days a week for the next 2 years, that's an additional living expense as well, right? If you, because of where you live in the situation, even if you have a kitchen in the Airbnb or midterm rental that you're living in, you may have to eat out a little bit more than you figured you were before, just because of location or circumstance. That's an additional living expense as well. So anything above and beyond what you typically make. So those are the 4 main coverages. In every policy, there's about 6 maybe to 10 additional little things that really matter. Not as much with the additional living expenses, but things like I mentioned with the landscaping and debris removal and a code upgrade and things like that. But those 4 are the main ones. And then for any individuals that we work with, we make sure that they understand those other little points as well. They're going to be important for people.
So what percentage of the budget is allocated to each one of those buckets?
It's not a percentage always. So when you apply for a policy, what should be happening in the underwriting process is an insurance company should assess you somewhat individually and figure out what kind of coverage do you need. Unfortunately, it's more like a check some boxes and we're going to make some guesses type of thing. So, and the one that they'll try and be the most accurate on is what does it cost to rebuild your house? And they'll look at like the square footage, and they asked you the quality of the finishes in your house. Usually they honestly don't even do that. They just kind of guess. On my house, I had to read my policy and they said all the kinds of wrong things about my house after, and I'd be like, hey, you said it was on a slab. It's on a raised foundation. That's a big difference. Yeah. You said I had siding. I have stucco. That's also a big difference. All these different things, they just guessed, or I don't know who did it, honestly. But all that to say, they make an estimate of what they think your house will cost to rebuild. Mm. And then they raise that by probably about 10% for a little cushion. And they say, this is your coverage for your dwelling, right? And then after that, typically they're picking some percentage of that to name your personal property. What they really should do is ask, what do you do? What do you spend your time on? How many kids do you have? And things like that. Because then you'd get a more accurate probably number for figuring out how much personal property someone has, right? Like someone like me, I have a lot of hobbies, right? So we don't buy a lot of high-end things, but I surf, I have kids skateboard, we mountain bike, all these different things. So none of these are crazy high-end things, but we have a lot of things in those categories, right? And so I would want, an underwriter will never ask me about that, but I would love for them to know, right? So that in case that came up later. So, but they'll usually pick a percentage of that coverage A, somewhere between 20 and 40%, and say, here is how much we're going to give you for your contents. Coverage B, other structures, that other structures coverage is pretty much always a percentage, which is again unfortunate because some people have 5 sheds in their backyard. I have people close to us in the Camarillo fire that were they were minorly underinsured on their house, but majorly underinsured on their other structures because they had 3 sheds burned down, a pool, which is their other structures, was ruined, and chicken coop and all these other things. And it's like all of a sudden they were $100,000 shy on their other structures because all they had was, it's usually 10% of your coverage A, your dwelling, is what they'll name in your other structures. So you have 500,000 on your house, you're going to have 50,000 on your other structures, and you can request more. And a lot of people should, right? 50,000 might be fine for you and me. I have a small office in the backyard and then fencing. So like that 10% is probably fine at my house, but for plenty of houses, it's not fine. So 10% for other structures, 20 to 40% on personal property and additional living expenses. They will also usually do that somewhere around 25%. But again, we talked about this on another video. You can ask for more. And that is one that a lot of times you don't have to pay that much more per month to get a lot more in coverage, right? And it's worth asking your agent, hey, I only have 100,000 in additional living expenses. How much does it cost to get more? And then you suddenly learn people will be surprised. I'm surprised oftentimes at when you ask for more insurance, how it affects your premiums. Yeah. And you might think that, if I get all this additional coverage in this one bucket, it's going to be exponentially more expensive. And it's not, right? But then you think like, hey, can I have some 5% additional for mold? I want the mold endorsement. That one might cost a lot of money because it's just, and it all has to do with how likely are you to use these things in the claims that are in your area. So that's what comes up there. Before I forget, I'll mention my last point. And this is a really important one that I think everyone should understand that's going through these fires. The expectation that most people have after they have what's called a total loss, which is pretty much everything is gone, right? Or everything's going to have to get replaced. Even if the house is still, the sticks of it are still standing, it's likely going to have to come down and be rebuilt. So if you have a total loss, most people's perception is that I should just get paid my policy limits, right? I paid you for $500,000 in coverage for my house. I paid you for this debris removal addition. I paid you for the $250,000 in personal property. You've taken all my premiums for all these years. all this stuff is now gone and it's not my fault. Shouldn't I just get all that money? And it just doesn't work that way. Right. And it doesn't work that way across any of the, no one's going to get that $100,000 they're owed in additional living expenses as a check, right? As much as they might like it, it's not going to come that way. No one's going to have an adjuster come and be like, your house is gone. Here's all of your dwelling coverage. They're going to put together an estimate of how much they think it'll cost to rebuild that house. And even though you were insured for $500,000, if their estimate says $350,000, that's the check that they're giving you. Is 350, and you're going to have to fight and advocate for that additional 150. And so this last tip is that the perspective for people needs to be that I will have to most likely advocate to get my policy limits. If I hope to get my policy limits across all these coverages, I cannot be passive about it. I cannot be passive about it, because if you are, you're most likely not going to give them. You're going to be leaving something on the table, and you're going to be wondering why your neighbor was able to get all of their personal property limits paid, and why your other neighbor got such a better per square footage rate from their builder and things like that, being able to utilize. So those are my main tips. There's so much more to go into, and a lot of it's specific to someone. Someone called me with a condo policy yesterday that's really different than your typical homeowner's policy, and how you should think about that. And so if people have more specific questions, like I said, it is incredibly important that you actually ask those questions. This is everyone's most valuable asset, right? And it's not your kitchen that flooded. It's nothing small. You're not taking advantage of your insurance company, no matter how much they pay you after this claim, right? There's no way that you can. Your house is gone. You paid premiums on. So there's no reason that you shouldn't be taking every opportunity that you can to get the entire benefit of your policy. For
sure. So recap. 3 tips. Journal everything.
Yeah. Go ahead. You see if you remember them.
Okay. Journal everything.
Yep.
Get as much money up front as you possibly can. And don't be passive, but be aggressive when you're negotiating with the adjuster.
Yeah. That's generally,
Okay.
Those are a good starting point for most people to give them kind of some general bearings about.
And most importantly, call Cameron.
I'll talk about, if you're fine with it for a moment, just what we're doing at Tugboat on that side of it. So it's funny. So often after a storm, because we've offered Tugboat for free in the past, and we're in such a delicate space, right? People know, like, this is our business. They know this is, like, we make money from the work that we do between Tugboat and Waypoint. Same with you guys. Like, this is the work we do, right? And so it's an awkward place for us a lot of times to think about how we have these conversations. I told our team though yesterday, like, we're offering Tugboat for free. We're giving away a 1-year free membership to literally anyone affected by the fires. And I was like, we should not be bashful about that in any way, and the value that someone has the opportunity to get from that. And so I will say confidently that if you have a claim from these wildfires, you should be using tugboat.claims in our service to help you through it. There's absolutely no reason not to. We're not taking a fee, a percentage, or anything from that claim for you to use it. And what tugboat.claims is, you can think of it a little bit like LegalZoom or TurboTax for your claim. No one would, it's funny, but like, no one would go and file their taxes in this day and age without using some type of service. I think I've talked to one person that's like, oh no, I just like went and kind of filed them on, like, through the government website on my own. I'm like, you sound crazy. Right? Who does that? You either have an accountant or you use TurboTax or something like it online. There's no other options. And so Tugboat is our attempt at bringing up that ground floor for the average claim. And where we're usually working with people that have smaller losses, we can be incredibly valuable. Maybe not, it's not the same thing as a public adjuster and having them advocate and make all the same demands, but it allows you to work through that claim process with so much more confidence, knowing that you have someone who's legitimately on your side, answering the questions for you. And so when someone creates an account at Tugboat, we get their policy information, we get the documents from their claim, we'll do a quick review of them through our system, and essentially figure out what are you looking to do next, right? Do you have a message from your adjuster that you're not sure how to respond to, what his questions might mean? Okay, here's some templates for some questions you can ask him in response to get some clarification. Did they deny your request for a larger advance? Okay, well, here's some state guidelines that you can send back to them in an email that looks like this to make that request again, right? Is your adjuster not getting back to you? How long has it been? Okay, well, it's been over 14 days. Here's the link to go create a DOI complaint and how to actually do that in a way that's effective and the words to use. So no matter what might be happening in someone's claim process, Tugboat allows someone to just have more confidence in it, all the way from their claim was denied to where it was paid. I just want to make sure I'm getting everything I can and not making mistakes. And so the website is tugboat.claims/wildfire. That'll have the link to have anyone sign up for free. But yeah, so that would be like my other tip. I'm not being bashful about being like, hey, if you have a claim, just goes and no matter how big or small the loss is, if it's just smoke, if your house was burnt all the way down, you don't want to hire a public adjuster. You're too skeptical of that. You don't want to give up a percentage of your claim. Totally understand all of that. And happy to even answer questions. It's one of the things that I've been happy about. People will call me, I am a public adjuster, right? We have clients we've already signed from these fires that are just like, I want a public adjuster. I'm not dealing with this on my own. And we're very happy to take care of them in that way. But I'm very genuine in saying if someone calls me and I'm talking to them about their fire right now, I in no way want them to hire a public adjuster, us or anyone else, unless they absolutely feel like they feel like I want to do that, right? And so thankfully, we have another option, which is Tugboat, which is like, hey, if you don't want to, this option's perfect for you. You're not gonna spend that money. You're not gonna have an intermediary between you and your insurance if you want to be the one talking to them. So that's what Tugboat is. That's where we spend so much of our time strategizing how to help people navigate that process just with more expertise.
Love that.
Yeah, I was going to chime in too. I mean, the majority so far, honestly, all of our claims that we've dealt with over the last 4 years and our business partners 8 years have not been any kind of natural disaster. Yeah. So the majority is, a fire, a house fire or a flood or something like that. A tree falls on it. So those are the majority of the claims that we have, which aren't as such a massive scale. Yeah. So, and I talk to homeowners all the time and they're just like, I'm not sure what's going on, how to do this. And Tugboat, like I looked through it. First of all, I was like, this is so inexpensive. You guys need to raise your prices is what I said at first. I'm like, this is awesome, this resource. Yeah. I mean, I learned so much just going through it, looking at it. And so I think that's an amazing resource. And it's where we'll direct, all the families that we have in our homes. It's like, hey, check it out.
Yeah.
See if you can get help.
I appreciate it. It's funny. We've talked about, we're building Tugboat in a way that we want it to be available to anybody that has a claim. And so that the reason it's priced the way it is one, we want people to feel comfortable using it even when they don't have a claim, right? So look at their policies and help give them guidance on pre-loss documentation. All that stuff is not claim related, right? And then beyond that, though, even for the person that only has the $5,000 claim that they had to file, like suddenly, and for some people, the $160 it costs to get signed up when you have a claim, that's not small, right? For some families, that's a lot. And so we've thought a lot in the past, like, oh, should we try and make it some percentage? Is it a piece of a claim? And instead, we know we have this other piece of the business that is Waypoint, that is the premium service. And right now, this is just transparency because this wildfire is so extensive. That part of our business, like we'll cap the amount of business that we can do. We'll have to partner with other public adjusting firms and give them business because we are getting so many referrals. Like we will be fine this year. And if we have anything that we can give back to the community that's within our scope, and thankfully we can offer Tugboat for free. Like we'll be totally fine offering Tugboat for free. But it is funny because it makes people question like, wait, how can something this affordable, cheap, how can it actually do what you say it is? And the reason is, this is an important fact I think for people to understand, is that I said at the beginning, but a little bit of education goes a long way, right? And so when someone uses Tugboat, they're not getting the same experience they would have if they were a public adjuster. It doesn't make you as smart as I am as a negotiator with an insurance company,
Sure.
right? But you don't have to be as smart as I am to make your claim a large percentage better for you, right? And so what we talk about is like, there's a lot of low hanging fruit in a claim that no one ever reaches for, right? They don't know that they can make this ALE request. They don't know that they can ask for this portion that was denied to actually be overturned. They don't know that this was just a mistake in the estimate that was missed by the insurance. Like, they just don't know. And so for like the reason Tugboat delivers so much value to people when it does is because it's actually like that, to get to that value isn't the highest bar. You know what I mean? It's not that difficult for me to spend or like for Tugboat to deliver one sheet of paper that delivers $10,000 in value. And you guys will know this too, because when you have a specialized area of expertise, you get so specialized in it that if someone was to be like, Jason Kelly, can I just get 10 minutes of your time on the phone? I'm trying to get into this short midterm rental business and I don't know what to do. Like, the amount of money, time, and resources they will save after talking to you guys for 10 minutes, you know, I mean, it's not $500. It's probably $5,000 or $50,000 that they just, in the headache that they just saved themselves, right? Like, oh my gosh, I was going to arbitrage this dumb spot. I had no idea. I was going to end up totally underwater on it. And now I'm not going to, just because of these few tips. And that's what it is in most industries. If you get specialized knowledge specific to your situation, it is, the value of it is so outsized than from the general thing that you might be reading online, right? Because when you listen to someone's, it's just about the ability to get specific, right? You guys can write a blog, and even this video, we're talking about wildfires right now. If someone, you know, this is not that relevant to the flood claims that are going on in North Carolina, right? It's a total different scenario, totally different set of issues. There's FEMA involved already there. So we were having that conversation. The advice that I give might be different, right? Yeah. The point is, what Tugboat does, what you guys do when you have conversations with people that are on your team, is that you get specialized. Hey, what's going on right now? What is this specific issue? We're going to overcome that, not just go over like a blog article that says, you know what, think about neighborhoods in this way, right? Don't arbitrage this type of property, right? Don't overpay in this, you know what I mean? So that ability to get specialized is what we've been able to build into Tugboat's process that delivers the outsized value, right? So that someone from our team can spend 5 minutes on a file and be like, hey, I just found 10 grand for this person. That's amazing.
So amazing. Well, we are pointing everybody we can to Cameron. So thankful for him and what you do. Love the heart behind it. It's so similar to what we're about, just helping people in their greatest time of need. Had a question about ALE and coverage as far as distance. So a lot of these homes, these are in neighborhoods that have just been decimated. Like they're not there anymore. It's insane. And there's a lot of these homeowners that are looking for housing in surrounding neighborhoods, but some are having to look considerable distances away from where their home used to be. So are there limits to like a radius? Like how far can these people be searching to find housing from where their homes were?
That's especially if it's going to take like 2 years. I mean, some people are relocating their entire lives. Like talked to a family the other day. It was their husband and wife and their 2 kids, and they each grabbed their favorite stuffed animal, and that was it.
That was all they got.
And now their school is gone. They're trying to figure out, you know, do I go live near family in another city? But they don't know if that's available. So I would love to hear.
That's such a great question. I haven't gotten that one personally yet, but I'm sure you guys will. So that I'm glad you guys brought that up. Some people are going to move out of state because of this, right? Because of how much they got uprooted. They're like, well, my parents are back in Tennessee, and it's just going to be easier to be there, and we're just going to start back over there while this happens. And maybe they're going to sell their property that was here. So the answer is there is no limit to how far they can go. Really? I have seen requests come in and get approved for people that were staying in Europe for a small bit of time. And they just sent in an invoice for it. And the reason is what your policy owes for. And it's not, a lot of times additional living expenses language in policies is vague and just not that detailed. But generally the industry standard, and sometimes this is specific in your policy, is that what you're owed for is a like, kind, and quality, or a similar living, a similar standard of living. Right. And so what we do when we help people think through how much they should be owed per month as far as their rental value is to look at their house that they were living in. How much would their house cost as a rental, as a furnished rental? That's called the fair rental value. So my house, I live in Simi Valley, living in this neighborhood, this size house, this quality, this size yard. If I was going to rent this thing out for the amount of time that I need to to rent a place. So usually that's a few months, right? So that's now a midterm, short-term rental. How much would my house cost essentially on Airbnb almost, right? To rent it out. That's where most companies are getting their prices from. It's a little different in this instance because now people are going to be able to sign 1-year leases, but it still has to be a furnished place, right? You can't be expected to have to furnish it yourself. And that makes a big difference. And your adjuster may only be approving 6 months at a time, which is still a midterm rental. So all that to say, it's going to be higher than if I was looking to go rent a 3-bedroom house in Simi right now that I was going to furnish and I was going to sign a 1-year lease on. But the point is that number that you're able to come up with reasonably, and you can talk with your adjuster about this and be like, hey, look, I looked on Zillow and Redfin and Airbnb, and furnished rentals in my area are going for this much per month. My fair rental value should be $7,500 per month based on this. And if they approve that rate, if you can get them to approve that rate in writing, then usually now you can get them to approve that rate and move it around to somewhere else, right? And be like, okay, I'm going to take this now, but I'm not going to stay anywhere near the Palisades or in Altadena. We have family in Santa Clarita. We have family up north in Ventura. We have family out of state in Arizona, right? Wherever it might be. And so we're going to go ahead and stay there. And I'm going to use this budget to approve it. And some people may be forced to do this because it's cheaper elsewhere and you get that $7,500 approved, but now you're only going to go spend $4,000 a month because that's what you need to be able to do. So the answer is I've never seen a limit put in a policy as to where they can stay. And I've never seen one enforced. I've seen adjusters will balk at sometimes if you say, because we've had people be like, hey, I'm just going to take my kids to Disneyland next week. I need to get out of my headspace. And obviously your insurance company doesn't owe for you to go on vacation, but they owe you a fair rental. So if you're going and renting somewhere and you're going to go spend $10,000 a month, the $7,500 one I used, if you went and spent $10,000 a month to get away, to really get away with your family on vacation, they should still reimburse you for $7,500 of that, right? You're not coming out of pocket for the whole amount of it because even if you rented in town, they were going to have to pay for it. So you can get flexible, you can get creative in that. And my little bit of advice though, would be in this situation for people to likely not do that thing I just said. Do not start burning through too much of your ALE early in this process. It's going to take 2 years.
So what about the reverse of that? So let's say in your example, they're allocated $7,500, but what if they only spend $55 or $6? Do they get the difference?
The simple answer is no. If you can convince your insurance company, which I wish more would do this, sometimes rarely you can, to be like, hey, you approve my $7,500. Can I get that as a check each month to use at my discretion and my disposal? Sometimes yes, but technically additional living expenses and policies is what's called an incurred cost. Doesn't mean that you have to, this is a little bit of a misunderstanding of what incurred means. Incurred doesn't mean you actually had to spend that money. It means that you had to incur the invoice of that money. You now owe that money to somebody, some other third party. You either spent it or you owe it. So for you guys, whenever you send an invoice to a tenant, it's staying in one of your places, they have now incurred that cost. The insurance company owes to. But the point is, insurance companies know that legally they don't have to pay it as an advance, which would be giving someone that check and saying, you can now go use this at your discretion. Sometimes you can. People can get creative. What I tell people, and we'll help people we will help people in Tugboat make requests for things that they are not owed, meaning your adjuster doesn't owe you to pay you that advance, but it doesn't hurt to ask for it, right? Maybe they have an internal policy that they're going to be a little bit more generous in this storm and they will pay it up front, and then just ask for it. And if you really, really want to, ask for it a lot, you know what I mean? Why can't we do this on this one? Is there any other way that do I need to send you invoices after I spend it? So people can, if you want to get creative on a claim, that's totally fine. Make those requests. You're not doing anything illegal, or there's no fraud happening by asking your adjuster if you can do something like that. But generally the answer to the question is, Jason, that no, you don't just get the difference there. But again, if someone's fair rental value is $7,500 right now, there's a good chance that they should be looking for somewhere that costs $5,500 a month so they can make that rental last a little bit longer, right? Again, people's marker in their mind should be at least 2 years. Take your additional living expenses limit, multiply it by 24 months, and that's about how much you should be thinking you should spend, right? Is to be safe. Things might happen faster. And this is I think I mentioned this on the video we did the other night, the live stream, that if you go and rent a place that is below your living standard because you're trying to be really careful about that amount that you're paying, and 6 months from now you see that the city is doing amazing, right? Really uncharacteristic of California, things are moving really fast all of a sudden. Permits are being issued, rebuilding has started, and my house is going to be done in 12 months or 18 months. It's not going to take 2 years. At that point, you can go ask your adjuster, hey, this place is really not working out for us great. It looks like we're going to be able to get back into our house faster than we expected. We would like to move into something that fits us a little bit better, right? Our fair rental value is $7,500. We want to actually start spending that now. And we have helped people make those kind of shifts before.
That's awesome. So I have a question. If I hired you as my public adjuster, what type of interactions do I have to have with my insurance company? Or could you be the one that called them first for me, where I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't even know where to go. So that's my first question. My second one is, how's the relationship with you working with them? Are they like, oh crud, we have now we're dealing with a public adjuster. Cameron, so we know we're getting scrutinized and nitpicking all the lines. I mean, I know you guys understand the industry, but is that something you see?
Those are great questions. We haven't talked a lot about the public adjuster side of what we do or what that role is, other than the beginning. So the answer to your first question is yes. So once you hire a public adjuster, typically they are now acting on your behalf within that claim, right? Cool. And so they're the ones talking to the adjuster. We, in our representation letter, and our clients sign this, is a request for the adjuster to not reach out to the clients anymore.
Okay.
Adjusters still might, and they can legally in some states.
Okay.
It's hard to get that kind of enforced, but it's just to let them know, this client, this homeowner has requested that you talk to their representative. That's me, only moving forward. Wow. And even the first one, if someone wants us to file a claim on their behalf, or we'll say, hey, you can go ahead and file it online. We're going to send in our representation letter immediately thereafter, and that adjuster is only going to talk to us. Okay. So the answer is, for a public adjuster, typically will take over all the interactions with your insurance company. Wow. Not all the interactions with your contractor necessarily, not all the interactions with every vendor that needs to have contracts with you separately, but with that adjuster, with your insurance company, the answer is yes. So your second question, how did those conversations go? And it really just depends. So adjusters are just people, right? They're not some machine that have like pre-programmed, I hate public adjusters, or I'm fine with them. So we try and keep a really positive relationship with the most that we work with. We like to see them as like the colleagues on the other side of this claim. Yeah. We're both trying to do the same thing, right? This family wants to get back in their home. This family wants to be made right. We're helping them do that. You're helping them do that. How can we do this together? So the best public adjusting relationships with a carrier is a collaborative one, where we see that we're working kind of on the same team, even though that functionally it is separate than that. there are plenty of adjusters for insurance companies that have very negative opinions about public adjusters. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's more rare, but the first phone call, it feels really combative right off the bat, right? And sometimes it's not the first phone call, but it's the first time that we make a request that they're not happy with. It can get combative or whatever it is. And so it's, a claim is a negotiation. And anybody should remember that, whether they're a public adjuster. Public adjusters are people too. And there's a reason that we have negative opinions about us, right? There are plenty that themselves start claims off really combative. I know ones that will, on the first phone call, the public adjuster will be really combative out the gate. You're not being fair to this person, whatever it might be, and come out. And so it really depends on us and how we're treating that claim, how we're communicating, how we're responding when someone gets emotional with us, right? Are we able to keep a level of professionalism? Are we able to make sure that we're setting the tone? And so what I like to say for our team is like, we want to be the drivers of this claim, right? We're going to try and keep the pace of it moving forward, and we're going to set the tone. This is a serious situation. We're not friends. We are colleagues working through this. Right? This is a problem that needs to get solved. How do we professionally and cordially work through this? We're going to have disagreements, right? That's almost inevitable. So, and we'll even set the tone early on about what disagreements might look like. Hey, if I send you something and you're not happy with it, please just be really specific when you respond to me. And that way I know exactly what you don't agree with, and we can respond to that. And we know that we're not going to get every single thing that we ask for on most claims. That happens too. So all that to say, it depends. It can be combative. We try to make it not combative, but not always up to us when it comes to it in the claim process.
Sure.
Well, with the remaining time we have, we've kind of talked about some heavy stuff, but we would love to hear, in all of your years of experience, maybe like your top success story of how you were able to help somebody, just with your expertise and knowledge. Like your favorite, maybe top success story.
Oh man, that's fun. Thanks for asking that question. And it's funny because what I'll share, it's not the biggest claim we've ever helped someone win. It's not, the sexiest or anything like that. It's not some big fire loss or anything like that. There's a few that come to mind. I was just talking with someone about this the other day. What I love most, and it's not even on the public adjusting side where we win it. It's on the tugboat side. So our favorite successes, the ones that legitimately, if you were to see us on our Zoom calls or in the office, like getting hyped about something, it's when someone does this. And so Tugboat's been pretty successful in helping homeowners get their denials overturned when we feel like a denial was wrongful, specifically for water losses and where the wrong exclusion was named or they misunderstood something and things like that. And so there have been a good handful that were $30,000 or less claims that people filed and were denied outright. But that's still a lot of money to not be staring down the barrel at, right? If you have 30,000, 20,000, 15,000, maybe even less, and you're like, I have to do this myself now. Like most people don't have $1,000 in their savings account, unfortunately. That's just the situation that people are in. So our favorite success stories, I can think of a few that happened honestly on the same kind of roadmap where a homeowner came to Tugboat and we said, hey, here's some templates and some guidance for how to dispute this denial. Right. And it's almost never easy. And we'll tell people off the gate, we've learned now, say, hey, it's not going to be easy. It's probably going to take a few months. You're going to get frustrated. They're not going to answer your questions right away. You're going to have to really dig deep and try and get to the bottom of this, but it's worth it, right? If you can get over this hump and get this claim approved, you're going to say it's worth it. And to get the phone call or the message from someone that's like, they just sent me the letter, they're covering my claim and they're sending me a check for $20,000. Like if you could see the first time that we got that message, like we just went ecstatic. We're like, no way. Cause it's hard for me. I would think I'm a very good, knowledgeable public adjuster. It's hard for me to get a denial overturned. And sometimes harder for me because there is that level of combativeness in a claim. So when we started getting messages from homeowners that are like, my denial got overturned. I had $0 and now I have $15,000 or $20,000. Gosh. And there are claims that we've taken from $100,000 to $300,000, right? Like that's such a bigger difference, but it's the 0 to 15 to 20 to 30 that are the ones that like we'll go crazy for those. It's like we need to celebrate this and talk to this person and the way that person feels after that, because people feel this claims process, big or small, so personally, right? And insurance companies want you to in their marketing, right? They're your good neighbor. You're in good hands. They're using this language that they want you to feel like, hey, we're in your home. We're family with you. We're really close. And people actually take that to heart, for better or likely for worse, right? And they have this expectation that when something goes wrong and they pick up the phone and they call that insurance company, that they're going to be taken care of, that they're going to have someone there that's really thoughtful and thorough. And so when they get a quick denial, and some of these are like, they never even came to inspect my house. They talked to me on the phone. They had me send in a photo, and all of a sudden my claims denied. Like, what's going on? What happened here? People are legitimate, like in tears, hurt by this situation. Like what's like it's taken so personally, and I understand why. It's like you wanted them to take this personally, and they do, and it hurts, and it's so emotional for them. So to get that phone call, that message of like, oh my gosh, like this just changed. So by far and away, our favorite success stories are those ones when someone gets their denials overturned and they do it themselves. I'm more excited if they do it than if I do it, for sure.
That's awesome. So good.
So cool.
So good. Cool. Well, man, we are so thankful for your time. Thank you for all your education today. In the moments that we have left, can you just tell the people the best way to reach you? We'll post everything in the description of the video, but how would you prefer to be reached?
Yeah. I will have you know what I'll do? I'll have you put my cell phone number in the description. That way, if I ever want you to take it out, you can edit it and take it out. You won't see it in the video, or you can change it to our office number if I get inundated too much. So you can reach out to the number that we put in there. My email, anybody can email anytime. So that's Cameron@tugboat.claims, CAMERON @tugboat.claims. If they want to just connect with us, Instagram is a great place to see the videos that we put out and the content that we put out, and follow us there. You'll see videos of me talking through specific issues, updates about the fire will be coming up, and things like that. We're also on the other social media channels. We're also on YouTube, but I think Instagram is where people would have the ability to stay most connected with us. And check out our website. Tugboat.claims is the website. From there, you'll see an overview of what we do. You have access to go and create an account. If you're not associated with these wildfires, if you are just someone else somewhere and just are interested in what our membership is, it's $60 a year, which is $5 a month. And you get policy review and education. You get pre-loss documentation, and really essentially just helps you be prepared at any moment for when damage occurs, to know whether or not you should file a claim, how to do it, and that when, God forbid, something like these fires happened, you're the person that was fully prepared for it. So those would be the best ways.
Okay, you did a quick segue into something I had burning questions about. Besides signing up for Tugboat, because that's something I think that we will do and recommend that people do to be prepared. Because a lot of us, like we're watching this, it's awful. It's like we're hurting with our friends and family
100%.
by just talking about it. But I also know it's putting us all on guard of like, how can we be better prepared? And I know simple things that we were talking about is like even taking a video of your home and all the contents of your home. Like one quick question, does that stand up as evidence of what is in your home?
100% it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
That's something so simple just with your iPhone. Like that's a simple thing that we could do. Is there anything else? I mean, we have like emergency checklists. Like I know I've created one that you write the stuff down that if you had 10 minutes in the room, what are the things you would grab? And it's already written down. So that way you can just go get it all. But like, do you have any suggestions of any other things? Yeah,
we tried, it's so funny when like unfortunate for us to think through when this fire happened, what we thought, and anytime a fire like this happened, now that we have this membership, which is new for us, where we're offering just a few tools. The few tools that we offer are there to help people be most prepared for when something like this might happen. And those are what you said, pre-loss documentation. It's not just about the contents, but the quality and status of your home before this fire happened. You're going to be searching for, I don't have this angle that shows the countertop on the vanity in my master bathroom. And I'm trying to tell my adjuster that it was this specialized stone that we ordered. And like, you know what I mean? Like those are the types of things. It's not just the contents, but the contents are important. So what we help people do is to gather that in an appropriate way. What we will be able to do, hopefully by the end of this year, is when they have a loss, take those photos and translate them into an actual list of those items without them having to go through and write everything down. So that's the pre-loss documentation. So what you're saying, yes, it's going through taking photos and videos inside drawers, inside closets, and overviews of rooms. And then the other thing is to have, and again, this is what we do with policy insights and education with Tugboat, is to have someone take a really thorough look at your policy. And you can do that yourself. Someone can look at their policy and ask the tough questions themselves to their agent that nobody actually took away. Most people don't have an agent anymore. They got their policy through Lemonade or some other State Farm's online website. Nobody actually talked to them about whether or not this was good enough. So you can look at it and think and just do a tiny bit of research. How much would it cost if my house burned to the ground, like 10,000 houses just burned to the ground? If that was me, how much would it cost to rebuild it? Is there enough here? How much? Okay, it says I have $100,000 in additional living expenses. Would that last me 2 years? The answer is no, right? Like the people that I'm talking to, the answer is no. Like that have lost their home for 2 years. And so you can ask those questions and try and get those issues remedied. If we're looking at the policy, we're just giving you a breakdown of like, hey, here's what we see. Here's things to ask your agent or whoever issued your policy about and see if they can address them for you. Those two things. If all of the people had photos and documentation of the inside of their houses and the outside and had a good policy review a year before this happened, the amount of difference that it would make in the hundreds of millions of dollars when this is all said and done is going to be astronomical. But those, like, I don't even have like an emergency grab these things because we're so claim focused. There are a bunch of other things people should do to be emergency prepared that are outside of our expertise and specialty. But those two, your policy being thoroughly ready for a loss and your home being thoroughly documented for a loss are the two things.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate all you've done and you continue to do to help all these people. It's a joy to have you.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, it's good to get to know you guys. I'm sure we'll stay connected some more. Love to learn more about what you guys are doing and how you're connecting with people. I know you guys are growing your whole network as well, but excited that there are people out there like you guys that not just have like a rental home, but know and have this value of like, hey, we're here to help people through this greatest time of need. Like that's the perspective that everyone in the industry needs to have, right? You're not just a home for someone to rent anymore, right? You're something beyond that. So thanks for being there as well.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And I guess I should take a minute just because some people from the fires are probably watching this, that if you are looking, in the LA area or outside of it, that we have a lot of vetted homes community members who have properties that are clean and ready to go. And not only a place for you to lay your head, but truly these families and people really love the people that are in their homes and take care of you. And it's really been a sweet thing to work with all these amazing people. So feel free to reach out to us as well if there's any way we can help. But Cameron, thanks so much. You are amazing.
It's been fun. It's been super fun.